Thank you, Minister. Senator Carr.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann. I refer the Minister to a report in this morning's Herald Sun revealing widespread purchasing by federal government departments of paper from foreign suppliers that the Anti-Dumping Commission identifies as being in breach of the WTO rules and that the government's own dumping standards. Minister, why is the government allowing so many agencies, including the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and your own department, to put Australian jobs at risk by supporting unfair and damaging trade practices?
The Minister for Finance, Senator Cormann.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I thank Senator Carr for that question. As he knows, Australian suppliers are very well represented in Commonwealth procurement, with approximately 94% of Commonwealth contracts being awarded to Australian suppliers in each of the 3 years from 2012-13 to 2014-15. The Anti-Dumping Commission has a current investigation into alleged dumping of copy paper exported to Australia from countries that account for the most significant volumes of paper exports to Australia, namely Brazil, China, Indonesia and Thailand. On 29 September, the Commissioner found that A4 paper exported from China and Thailand had been dumped. On 4 November, it made the same findings for paper from Brazil and Indonesia, and the Commission has required securities in respect of interim dumping duties that may become payable, so the laws are being implemented as appropriate. Labor's record, of course, of high energy costs and industry shutdowns have not been helpful to Australian manufacturers. The federal government will deliver $43 million, for example, to support the Hazelwood Power Station workers in Victoria's Latrobe Valley following closure of the facility in 2017. These are some of the practical steps that we are taking. Labor made manufacturing businesses in Australia less competitive internationally. It is Labor's responsibility because you put burdens into those manufacturing businesses' saddlebags by imposing a carbon tax, which was pushing up the cost of electricity for manufacturing businesses up and up and up, costs that are not faced by our competitors in other parts of the world. And of course, if Labor ever had the chance of getting back into government, they would come back and introduce and impose that carbon tax again. You would again impose burdens on manufacturing businesses in Australia, making it harder for them to compete. This government has got a proud record when it comes to supporting Australian manufacturing.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Carr, supplementary question.
I would ask, Minister, why is your department purchasing 41% of its paper from Indonesia, which the Dumping Commission has found to be dumped? Minister, in light of the imminent closure of the Hazelwood Power Station, and given the APM's mill in Barryvale is the second largest employer in the region, shouldn't the Australian government be doing its bit to support families in the Latrobe Valley by using Australian-made paper?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. The Australian government wants Australian businesses to have the best possible opportunity to sell products all around the world, to sell products and services all around the world. We want Australian manufacturing businesses and Australian businesses generally to be able to export Australian products and services. Now, the Commonwealth procurement rules, as Senator Carr well knows, identify that potential suppliers to government must be treated equitably and cannot be discriminated against due to their size, degree of foreign affiliation or ownership, location or the origin of their goods or services. This is an important principle that our exporting businesses also rely on when supplying goods and services in overseas markets, because importantly, the non-discriminatory rules contained in our various export agreements ensure that Australian suppliers are not disadvantaged when tendering for government procurement in countries with which we have such agreements in place. Now, I know that the senator for Pyongyang, the senator from North Korea, he wants us to go back to the situation.
Order, Senator Cormann. That's not in order. That's not in order, and your time has expired. Senator Carr.
Thank you.
Order on my right.
Minister, when will the Australian government finally repudiate its ongoing campaign against the interests of Australian families and use its purchasing power to support Australian paper workers in Australian jobs at Australian factories?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Where has the proud old Labor Party of Bob Hawke and Paul Keating gone? Where has the Labor Party gone that was promoting Australia as an open trading economy? Where has the party of Bob Hawke and Paul Keating gone, which lowered tariffs in order to ensure that the Australian economy could be the most competitive it possibly could be internationally, by making sure that Australian businesses were able to sell high-quality Australian products and services in other parts of the world, and that consumers here in Australia could benefit from high-quality products that are competitively priced, coming here from other parts of the world. Mr. President, the Australian economy is in its 26th year of continuous economic growth, and it is based on the proud reforms of the Hawke, Keating, Howard, and subsequently the Abbott and Turnbull governments. Now, Mr. President, I know that Senator Carr wants to take Australia backwards into this period where we've got a big fence around Australia. That is not the approach of the Turnbull government. We stand for an open, prosperous
Thank you,
trading
Minister.
economy.
The time for answering the question has expired. Senator Brandis.